97% of all the black people in the United States were here before 97% of all other people here are even arrived today. Remember that. Very important. When somebody starts telling you to go back where you came from, you say, hey, 97% of my people were here before y'all ever arrived. And so if anybody's going to leave, the last leave first. And the people who developed everything should stay here, because everybody else got a free ride. So let me tell you what happened between 1710 and 1712 and the Civil War. Let me show you what blacks did in terms of accumulating the wealth. Nobody else accumulated the wealth. The wealth was in black slaves. They keep flipping things over, tricking my people, for making you believe that somebody worked hard and that they got their money from land. They did not get their money from land. Land had no value. Land had absolutely no value. You could get all the free land you wanted in America. They had head rights and land grants, gave out millions of acres of land whoever wanted. You could go in the United States and go out to what we call the frontier, where Indians were, and say, I own from here to that mountain, drive a stick in the ground, go down and file a claim. The only time land had value when you put a slave on it. And according to President Andrew Jackson, he says that immediately a black slave would bring 75% of the value to the land. So between the time of enslavement and the Civil War, whites in America invested $8 billion into buying slaves. And when they talked about freeing the slaves, they demanded their money back. And they asked for reparation. They sent a letter to Lincoln saying, we'll turn the black slaves loose, but you give us back our $8 billion. President Lincoln, you all don't know it, he sent a letter to Congress asking for $8 billion in reparations. Congress says, that kind of money doesn't even exist. That's more money than all of our businesses and the federal budget put together. And that's one of the triggering mechanisms for the Civil War. They didn't have that kind of money. As a matter of fact, from the period I just told you about from 1710 to the Civil War, 2 out of every 3 people in the United States that had over $100,000, 2 out of every 3 lived in the South. A white plantation owner in the South who had black slaves had 400 times the wealth of a northern farmer. A white person in the South with 2 slaves had a value equal to any non-farmer in the North. If I take the white person in the North and add his house, his land, his animal, his tools, and his savings together, if you own 2 black slaves in the South, you had as much as a white person in the North. In the South, up until the Civil War, a black slave was an American Express card, a walking Visa card. A white person did not have to work. All they'd do in the morning was get up and get his 2 slaves off to work and lay and wait for them to come back. He didn't have to work. On the eve of the Civil War, to show you what that means in terms of having a slave, black people in the South, on the eve of the Civil War, picked and sold alone over 1 billion pounds of cotton and was sold just to England alone. England paid 48 cents a pound for that cotton. That money from that cotton, gave every white person in the United States $500 without even working on the eve of the Civil War. So what I'm telling you is that they didn't get their wealth from working hard. And I went back and looked in 1860 and saying, in 1860s, what did black folk own, even the free blacks? In that time, poor blacks that were free in America, the blacks in general, they had 1/2 of 1% of the wealth in 1860.